At my brother's kids' party, Mom took the cake I bought for my kids and said, "Better children deserve better things." My daughter's face fell. I carried her out before the candles. That night, I sent one message, "Start with the video." Then, Mom's calls wouldn't stop. My name is Seth Barlow. I am 36 years old. I am a high school history teacher 10 years in. And I teach teenagers how to read evidence, how to separate what someone claims happened from what the record actually shows, how to sit with a primary source and let it speak without adding to it. I have spent a decade telling 16-year-olds the document says what it says. You do not need to argue with someone's version when you have the original. My mother forgot what I do for a living. My brother Grant's son Cooper turned 9 that Saturday. The party was at Grant and Patrice's house, a colonial in the suburb north of Columbus that they had bought 3 years ago when Patrice went back to work. Balloons on the mailbox, kids' bikes in the driveway, the specific Saturday afternoon energy of a house that has been organized for other people's children to run through. Lily was 7. Marcus was 5. They had been talking about the party since Tuesday, the way kids talk about something they are looking forward to with a completeness that adults lose somewhere around the age of 12. Lily had wanted to bring a cake, not for the party generally, not to contribute to the spread. A cake for her and Marcus, because she understood, in the way 7-year-olds understand things, that Cooper and Ava's party cake was for Cooper and Ava's family, and she was not entirely sure that included her. I want to be clear about that. I did not put that thought in her head. She came to it herself. She asked me on Wednesday if they could have their own small cake, and I said yes, and we went to the bakery 2 blocks from our house on Saturday morning, and she chose a Peppa Pig cake, which was Marcus's current favorite character, because she wanted it to be for both of them. It cost $42. She carried the box in her lap the whole drive over, both hands on the sides, the way you hold something you do not want to drop. Marcus fell asleep against the car window 20 minutes in. Lily watched the box the whole time. I teach history. Specifically, I teach teenagers how to read evidence, how a primary source works, and why it matters. How the document in front of you is more reliable than the account someone gives you later about what the document said. I have spent 10 years building this habit in students who would rather argue from feeling than sit with the record. My mother forgot what I do for a living. She has a settled hierarchy of her grandchildren. I recognized it before I was willing to name it. Cooper and Ava are Grant's children, and Grant's family looks the way my mother had always planned for her children's families to look. Church on Sundays, a mortgage and a zip code she respects, a daughter-in-law she had liked from the first introduction. Grant's family is the version that landed correctly in her model. Mine had gone sideways somewhere, in her accounting when I married Addie, who is not from here, who is not from the church, who has opinions about things my mother considers settled. I do not need to trace the whole history. The short version is that my children grew up being my mother's second-tier grandchildren. And I had been telling myself it was small things, and the party was not a small thing. I noticed the gift table when I set the cake box down on the food table in the kitchen. A wrapped box with a price tag visible on the seam. $65, a remote control car in Cooper's size. Ruth's handwriting on the tag. Next to it, a card, jointly addressed to Lily and Marcus. Both names on one envelope, one card. I looked at it for a moment, and then I set the cake box down and went to find Addie. She was in the backyard with Marcus, who had woken up in the driveway and was now in full operational mode, interested in everything. I told her we were here. She asked how it looked. I told her fine. I was not sure it was fine. Here is what I had been telling myself for the 3 years before that party. I had told myself that my mother's favoritism was about Grant and me, not about the grandchildren. That whatever her feelings about how my life had arranged itself, she would protect the children from it. That Lily and Marcus would get the version of their grandmother that was separate from the version of her that had opinions about my marriage and my career choices and the neighborhood we lived in and the school I taught at. Grant and I grew up 12 miles from where he lives now. Same town, same church, same extended family network that my mother has managed like an administrator for 30 years. Grant stayed close to all of it. He went to the school my father had gone to, married a woman my mother had admired on introduction, bought a house in the zip code my mother considered the right zip code. He had not done any of this strategically. It was simply where his life went, and where his life went happened to match the map my mother had drawn. My life went somewhere else. I went to college 4 hours away, came back to teach, met Addie at a friend's birthday dinner, and married her 2 years later. Addie is from Chicago. She did not grow up in a church. She has opinions about things that my mother considers settled. And she states those opinions without apology, which my mother has never known what to do with. My mother has been polite to Addie for 9 years in the specific way that politeness functions as a sustained form of distance, not cold. Polite. The way you are polite to someone at an event when you are waiting for the event to end. I had told myself, for 9 years, that this was between my mother and Addie, and that the children were separate from it. I had told myself this with the specific conviction of someone who needs it to be true more than they have evidence that it is. Cooper's birthday the previous year had been the first time I could not fully convince myself. Ruth gave Cooper a $60 gift, a remote control car in the exact size for a 9-year-old, wrapped in specific birthday paper and signed with a specific message my aunt later told me Ruth had spent time writing. She gave Lily and Marcus a card, both names on one envelope, one card between them, no gift. The kind of thing you give to a child whose existence you are acknowledging without actually celebrating. I had seen Lily look at the card and look at Cooper's wrapped box and look at me. I had told her it was great and that we would celebrate her special things at her own birthday. She had accepted this without argument. She was 6. She trusted me. I told Addie on the drive home that it was probably an oversight. She said okay. In the way she says okay when she disagrees but has decided not to press it. 2 Christmases ago, Ruth had Cooper and Ava's school portraits framed in her living room. Lily and Marcus's school portraits were not on the wall. They were in a drawer in the spare bedroom, which I found out because Lily opened the drawer looking for a piece of tape and showed me. Lily did not find this strange. She was 5. She did not have a category for the difference yet. I was good at finding reasons why each individual instance was small. The gift table card, the portraits, the way Ruth introduced the grandchildren at her church, Cooper by name and age and what he was doing in school, Lily and Marcus by name and a vague they're doing great. Each one separately was small. Together, they were the arrangement, and the arrangement had been in place since my children were born. I had not confronted it because I had told myself I was waiting for the right moment. The truth, which I am more willing to say now than I was then, is that I was waiting to be wrong. I wanted one piece of evidence that the pattern I was seeing was not a pattern, just coincidence, just my sensitivity, just the distance between my life and the one my mother had wanted for me, getting into the space between my children and their grandmother. I was waiting for Ruth to surprise me. At the party in the backyard, the gift table had a $65 remote control car with Ruth's handwriting on the tag. Next to it, a card jointly addressed to Lily and Marcus. 1 envelope, 2 names. I looked at it and set the cake box down and went to find Addie, and did not tell her what I had seen because the children were right there and I did not yet have the shape of what I was going to do with it. The birthday cake came out at 3:14 in the afternoon. Grant's backyard, folding tables set up in a U shape, the kids arranged on one side, the adults standing behind them. Ruth was at the head of the table with a paper crown she had brought specifically for this occasion, directing the moment the way she directed every family moment she presided over. She had brought the birthday banner, the matching plates, and the specific candles Cooper had requested, which were shaped like race cars and which I had heard her mention twice in the preceding hour that she had driven to 3 stores to find. She is good at this. I want to say that because it is true. My mother knows how to make a birthday feel like a moment. She brought that skill fully to Cooper's party, as she brought it to every event for those grandchildren. The effort was real. What I am noting is not the effort, but the direction of it. Lily was sitting at the table. I had given her the cake box to hold while I went to get Marcus a plate, and she had the box on her lap, her hands on either side of it. She was not opening it. She understood the sequence without being told. Cooper's cake first, then hers and Marcus's. She was patient about it, the way she was patient about things when she understood why she was waiting. I had watched her watch the party cake come out and had thought, she is handling this well. The room sang happy birthday. Cooper blew out 9 candles plus 1 for luck. The room applauded. Ruth started cutting and distributing slices. The comfortable noise of a party going right. Lily reached over and lifted her cake box up onto the table beside Cooper's. She had her hand on the lid. She looked at me across the table and I nodded. She started to lift the lid. Ruth looked at the box. She looked at Lily. Her face did not change in any way that I would describe as dramatic. This is what I have thought about most since that day. Because a person who understood what they were about to do was wrong would have shown something. She did not show anything. She looked at the box the way she looked at anything that was in the wrong position, and she picked it up with Lily's hand still resting on the lid, and she moved it to the food table behind her. One motion. Efficient, and then she turned back to the room and said, in the tone she uses when she is explaining something practical to someone who needs to understand it, better children deserve better things. She said it to Lily, looking at Lily's face, not harshly. That is the part I keep returning to. She said it the way you say something you have always believed and have finally found the right moment to state clearly. 20 people heard it. The room went quiet in the particular rolling way that a crowd goes quiet when something has happened that no one has a ready response for. I heard a fork stop moving. I heard the beginning of a word from somewhere to my left that did not complete itself. I heard Marcus, who was 5, and did not understand the weight of what had just happened, ask someone for more juice. Lily's hand was still in the air where the cake box had been. Fingers slightly curved, still in the position of holding something that was no longer there. I am not going to describe her face in detail. Some things are not mine to describe. What I will say is that she did not cry at the table. 7-year-olds who are in the middle of something painful often do not cry in the moment. They absorb first. They go still. The processing comes later, in a different room, sometimes weeks later. Lily went still. I put down the plate I was holding. I did not say anything. I walked to Lily's side of the table, and I picked her up the way I have picked her up since she was a baby. One arm under her knees and one across her back, and she put her arms around my neck without asking why and without making a sound. I told her quietly that we were heading out. She pressed her face into the side of my neck and stayed there. I carried her through the party. Past the food table with her cake box on it, lid still closed. Past my mother, who still had the cake knife in her hand, who said my name once in a tone that expected me to stop, and I did not stop. Past Grant, who caught my eye and looked away. Past 20 people, who were all looking at something slightly to the side of us. Addie was already moving. She had been standing on the other side of the table, with a better angle than I had. She had her hand on Marcus's shoulder before I reached the back door, and by the time I got to the driveway, she was beside me with Marcus on her hip and our bag over her shoulder and the keys in her hand. She had not said a word to anyone. I did not say anything to my mother. I did not say anything to Grant. I buckled Lily into her seat. Addie buckled Marcus. I started the car and backed out of the driveway and did not look back at the house. We left the cake box on the food table. Lid still closed. I did not go back for it. On the drive home, I thought about it, not about the $42, but about the image of it sitting there after we had gone, with nobody opening it. I thought about whether someone eventually put it out on the table for the other kids. I thought about whether it ended up in the trash. I thought about Lily having chosen that specific design for Marcus because she wanted it to be for both of them. In the car, Lily asked if she could open the cake box when we got home. I told her yes. She said okay and looked out the window. Her voice was even. She was managing something, the way she manages things, by going quiet and processing and not presenting the weight of it to the people around her. She had learned that from watching me. which is a thought I have returned to more than once since that day. Marcus, beside her in his car seat, had taken off one shoe and was examining the Velcro closure with the focused attention of a 5-year-old who has found something worth investigating. He said the shoe had a problem. I told him we would look at it at home. He accepted this and went back to the examination. Addie sat in the passenger seat and looked out the window for 10 minutes before she spoke. Then she said, without looking at me, "What are you going to do?" I told her I did not know yet, which was true in one sense. The shape of what I was going to do was already there. I just had not yet found the specific form. She said, "Okay," and went back to the window. That was the extent of the conversation until after the kids were in bed. Both of us understood there were things that needed to wait for a room without children in it. If you have ever carried your child out of a room because someone told her she deserves less, and driven home in a car full of quiet because there was nothing to say that was appropriate for the children to hear, you know what that specific kind of quiet feels like. It is not comfortable, and it is not hostile. It is the quiet of two adults managing something large in a small space, making sure the management is invisible to the people in the back seat. Lily asked twice more if she could have her cake when we got home. I told her yes both times. If you are a parent and this is landing somewhere close to something in your own life, stay with me. Because what I did that night is the part that actually matters, and I want you to understand why I did it the way I did it. Lily and Marcus ate their cake at our kitchen table at 5:30. Addie lit a single candle she found in the junk drawer. No reason, just because Marcus asked for one, and he blew it out and they ate their Peppa Pig cake and Marcus got frosting on his chin, and Lily made a point of eating the piece with the largest flower on it, which she had been eyeing since the bakery. I watched them and thought about 20 people in a backyard 3 hours ago and what they had heard and done nothing about. After the kids were in bed, I went out to the car. Not to go anywhere, just to sit in the driveway with the doors closed and look at my phone. I had a text from my cousin Delia that had come in at 9:04 p.m. when I was reading Marcus his bedtime story and had missed it. The text said, "Did you see what I caught?" Below it was a video file. I sat in the car in the driveway and pressed play. 47 seconds. Shot from the left side of the table, Delia's angle. Phone held low enough that she had not fully committed to recording, the way you hold a phone when you are documenting something you are not sure you should be documenting. Ruth's profile clear on the right side of the frame. The cake box in Lily's hands as she lifts it to the table. The motion of Ruth reaching for it. The single sentence, Ruth's voice, every word audible on the recording. And then the 3-second silence that the room produced. And then the frame shifts slightly as Delia's hand moves. 47 seconds. I watched it twice. The first time I watched my mother's face. The second time I watched the background, where Lily was visible past Ruth's shoulder. I did not watch it a third time. Delia has known our family her whole life. She has watched Ruth manage the family hierarchy for 30 years. She had her phone in her hand because she had been taking party photos all afternoon. And she caught the moment because she was already recording and understood immediately what she was seeing. She texted me 2 hours after we left, which tells me she spent those 2 hours deciding whether to send it. She did. That decision cost her something, because sending it meant choosing a side in a family that does not respond well to sides being chosen, and she sent it anyway. I owe her for that. I have told her so. I sat in the car until my coffee got cold, which I had brought out with me, and then I sat a while longer. I was not thinking about what to do in the sense of debating options. I had the video. I had the family group chat. I teach evidence. The document says what it says. The question was not whether to use it, but how far to send it. And that question had one answer once I thought about it clearly. I almost kept it between me and Grant. My thumb was over his name in the contacts, and the thought was, maybe this stays internal. Maybe Grant and Patrice can speak to Ruth directly. Maybe the family doesn't need to see this to make it real. I stopped on that thought when I remembered the gift table. The joint card. The portraits in the drawer in the spare bedroom. Every person at that table today had been present for pieces of this arrangement for years. They had accepted it, Not because they agreed with it, but because nobody had ever said it out loud in a form that could not be managed away. Ruth had said it out loud. She had said it to a 7-year-old's face. The form it had taken now was 47 seconds of video, and keeping it between me and Grant was another version of accepting the arrangement. I opened the family group chat. 14 people. I typed 4 words. Start with the video. I attached the file. I pressed send. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat and went back inside. Here is what happened in the group chat that night. The video went in at 10:47 p.m. The message showed as delivered immediately. By 10:50 p.m., 3 read receipts had appeared. By 10:55 p.m., 11 of the 14 people in the thread had opened the message. The platform showed me the count. By 11 o'clock, all 14 had watched it. My Aunt Carol, who is Ruth's sister and has been in Ruth's corner on every family dispute for 50 years, sent one word at 10:58 p.m. Oh. One of Grant's cousins-in-law sent a longer message at 11:02 p.m. that I was told about secondhand by Delia. Something about how you do not speak to children that way, and she was shocked. I do not know if she had been at the party or had only heard about it secondhand, but she was in the chat and she had watched the video, and her reaction was unambiguous. My Uncle Pete, who rarely says anything in the group chat, sent a message at 11:09 p.m. That wasn't right. Ruth. 4 words from a man who had not weighed in on a family matter in years. I kept those 4 words. Grant did not respond in the thread. Patrice responded at 11:14 p.m. Delia forwarded me a screenshot the next morning. It said, "I am so sorry. I had gone inside for napkins. I did not hear what was said. Seth, I am so sorry. Please tell Addie I am so sorry." My father Bob sent me a text on my private phone at 11 p.m. It said, "Maybe call your mom." I looked at that text for a while, and then I put the phone face down. My mother left 3 voicemails between 10:51 and 11:23. I did not listen to them that night. I went to bed, lay on my back, listened to Addie breathing beside me, and looked at the ceiling until sometime around midnight when I stopped looking at it. The next morning, I listened to the voicemails in the car in the driveway, in order, with my coffee. The first one was disorganized the way a message is when someone calls before they have decided what they are going to say and begins talking anyway. She said my name twice. She said the video had been taken out of context. She said she needed to explain. She said she would explain if I called her back. The second one was more composed. She had taken the time to find her version. She said she had only meant that Cooper and Ava were having their special day, and Lily and Marcus could have their own things at their own birthday parties. She said the phrase had come out wrong. She said that posting that video to the whole family without calling her first was a serious overreaction. The third one was the one I returned to. She's too sensitive. You're raising that girl to fall apart over nothing. I was being practical. I don't know why you would do this to this family over a piece of cake. I listened to that one twice. The second time I noticed 2 things. She called it a piece of cake, not Lily's cake, not the cake Lily had carried from the bakery, just a piece of cake, as though the thing that had happened was about a quantity of dessert rather than about what she had said and to whom. And she said this family as though I had done something to a family that still included me, which told me that either she did not understand what the video meant for that question, or she understood and was hoping I didn't. I deleted all 3 voicemails and went inside to make breakfast. Addie was at the kitchen table with her coffee. She had been up before me. She looked at me when I came in and I poured a cup and sat down across from her. She said, "Grant's wife called me last night. I told her I knew that Delia had forwarded Patrice's message from the group chat. Addie said she called me. On the phone, after 11. That was different from a group chat message. Patrice had called Addie directly at 11 p.m., which meant she had wanted a conversation, not just to log a response in a thread. Addie told me what Patrice said, that she had not heard it happen because she had gone inside for napkins and came back to find the room had gone quiet and Lily was already being carried out. That when she asked Grant what had happened, he had told her it was a misunderstanding. that she had watched the video after it went into the chat and had not called it a misunderstanding to herself, that she was sorry, that she had been noticing things for a while and telling herself she was reading too much into them. I listened to all of this. Then I said, "What did you tell her?" Addie said she had told Patrice that she appreciated the call and that she hoped things could be different going forward and that she thought they should all take some time. I looked at my coffee. Addie looked at hers. She said, "Whatever you sent last night was the right thing." She still had not asked what it was. She trusted me enough to say that without knowing. That trust is not something I have ever taken for granted, because I have never done anything to deserve it cheaply. I sat across from her at our kitchen table on a Saturday morning and understood that whatever I had to navigate in the next weeks and months, I was going to navigate it with someone who was already on my side of it. I told her about the video. I told her about Delia's text. I told her what I had sent to the group chat. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, 4 words. I said, yes. She looked at her coffee cup. She said, "That's right. 4 is enough." The calls continued for 11 days. My mother called 17 times. Not 17 over 11 days, which would have been manageable. 17 total, with some days having 3 or 4 calls within a few hours. The pattern of someone who is trying to establish contact before the silence sets in. My father called twice, both times in the evening, both times on my private phone, both times with the same message in different words. "Maybe call your mom." I did not call my mother. Grant called once, on the 3rd day. I picked up because I wanted to know where he was in all of this. He said he was sorry the party had ended the way it did. He said Mom was having a hard time with how it was being received. He said he hoped we could find a way through it as a family. I told him I appreciated him calling and that I needed some time. He said he understood. He paused before he hung up, a pause that had something in it, and then he said, "She shouldn't have said it." I want you to know I know that. That was the most direct thing my brother had said to me about our mother in 4 years. It did not fix anything. But it was real, and it landed on me the way real things land, differently from the managed things. Grant's wife, Patrice, continued to text Addie over the following week. She was processing something, I think, reckoning with what she had been telling herself about things she had observed and not named. That is a hard thing to do, and she was doing it honestly, and I respected her for it. She texted me directly once, just to say that she was sorry and that her kids loved Lily and Marcus, and she wanted to make sure that stayed true regardless of what happened with Ruth. My mother stopped calling on the 12th day. The silence that replaced the calls had a different quality than the silence before them. Before the video, the silence was my accommodation, my willingness to absorb the arrangement without naming it. After the video, the silence was hers, and I understood it as the silence of someone who has run out of the version of events that places them on the right side and has not yet found a new version to offer. I did not fill it for her. I did not have a conversation with my mother for 3 months. Addie and I discussed it several times, late at night after the kids were in bed, at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea and the kind of quiet that comes when the children are asleep and the house belongs to the adults again. We were not arriving at a position through these conversations so much as we were sitting with one we had already reached. We were not ending anything permanently. We were creating space until we understood what the space was for. Until we understood whether it was a pause in which something could change or a permanent recalibration of how close we allowed that part of the family to get to our children. We talked about what Lily needed, which was our first question. We talked about what Marcus needed, who was 5 and whose understanding of what had happened at the party was limited to the fact that they had left early and there had been cake at home instead. We talked about what we needed, which we were less practiced at naming. What we arrived at, our children would not be placed in a room with Ruth until we had reason to believe the room was safe for them. That was the line. It was not about punishment. It was about what we had watched happen to our daughter's face and what it would mean to put her back in a situation where it could happen again. The answer about the space came in stages. My mother sent a letter, an actual letter on paper in her own handwriting, 2 pages, 6 weeks after the party. She said she had said something wrong, and she was sorry for how it had come out. She said she loved all her grandchildren. She said she hoped we could talk soon. She did not use Lily's name in the letter. I read it twice looking for it. She referred to the children and my grandchildren and your kids, but Lily's name did not appear. Not once. I sat with that for a while. I do not know whether she wrote around the name intentionally or whether it was an absence she did not notice. Either interpretation was its own piece of information. I folded the letter and put it in the junk drawer and did not reply. She sent another letter 4 weeks after that. This one used Lily's name. It said she was sorry she had hurt Lily. It said she had not meant the words the way they had sounded. I read it and thought about 47 seconds of video in which the words sounded exactly the way they sounded. The video had no editing. The words were not taken out of context. They were said to a 7-year-old's face, in a clear voice, with the ease of something that had been believed for a long time and had finally been said out loud. I put that letter on top of the first one in the junk drawer. 3 months after the party, I called my mother. Not because the letters had resolved anything, because Lily had asked me the week before whether Grandma Ruth was sick. She had noticed the absence and built the most charitable explanation a 7-year-old could construct. I sat with that question for several days. I thought about what I was teaching her, not about the situation, but about how adults handle situations, about whether the thing I was modeling was what I wanted her to carry. I made the call on a Tuesday afternoon while the kids were at school. My mother answered on the second ring. She said my name in a way that had relief in it, which told me she had been waiting for this and had not been certain it would come. I told her I was willing to be in contact with her. I told her I was willing at some point for my children to see her. I told her that what she said at the party was not something I was going to explain to Lily or ask Lily to make peace with on Ruth's behalf. I told her that if she wanted a relationship with my children, it needed to be a relationship where they felt her gladness at their existence, not her assessment of their ranking. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said she understood. Then she said she loved the kids. Then she said she had not realized how it had landed. I told her I believed all 3 of those things. I told her I also believed what was on the video. I told her both of those things were true at the same time, and that the distance between them was something she would need to work out, not me. She went quiet again, longer this time. Then she said, "I'll try." I told her that was a start. I told her I would be in touch. I hung up and sat in the kitchen for a few minutes. Not with any particular feeling, more like the specific stillness that comes at the end of something that has been in motion for a long time. I teach primary sources. I teach my students that a document says what it says, and that the gap between what a document says and what someone later claims it meant is where most of history's arguments live. The video said what it said. My mother's letters said what they said. The missing name in the first letter said what it said. None of those things needed me to argue with anyone about them. They were already on the record. What comes next is not something I can tell you with certainty. My mother and I have spoken twice since that call. Both conversations were careful and short and left more unsaid than said. Ruth has not seen my children since the party. She sends them cards at birthdays. She used both their names on separate cards, which I noticed. Whether that continues and whether it leads somewhere is not a question I am trying to answer in advance. What I know is that I will not answer it by absorbing things I have not agreed to absorb. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales. There are more of these stories, and they start in the same place, with someone deciding that a child can absorb the weight of an adult's hierarchy without it costing the child anything. They are always wrong. 3 weeks after the party, Lily turned 8. We did not have the party at my parents' house. We had it in our backyard. The one with the climbing structure I had built in sections over 2 weekends in October, the one Marcus had christened by immediately falling off the lowest rung and then getting back up and trying again. We had 11 kids from Lily's class and 4 from the neighborhood, and Addie's sister drove up from Cincinnati with her too. We had hamburgers and juice boxes and a playlist Lily had assembled herself on Addie's phone that was mostly songs from animated movies with one Taylor Swift song in the middle that she had added when she thought no one was watching. and we had a cake. Peppa Pig. Same bakery 2 blocks from our house. Same $42. Same woman behind the counter who remembered us from the week before and asked if the box was for the same little girl. I said yes. She said happy birthday and wrote it on the box in her careful handwriting. Lily carried it in from the car. I set it on the table in the backyard. I lit 8 candles and 1 for luck, the way it goes. Marcus stationed himself directly in front of the cake at a distance of approximately 4 inches, studying the candles with the expression of someone who has been entrusted with something important. He had been asking since morning when it would be time for the cake. Lily looked at the candles. She looked at me. I had my phone out to take a photo, trying to get the moment before the moment passes, the way parents do when they understand that these specific moments do not repeat. She took a breath. She blew out every candle in one breath. The backyard cheered. Marcus immediately reached for a piece and had frosting on his chin within 30 seconds, which he did not notice and which Addie photographed. Addie's sister was laughing at something one of the neighbor kids had said. 11 children from Lily's class ran in 3 different directions at once. The afternoon went the way afternoons go when nobody is organizing anyone and everyone present is glad to be there. Ruth's last unanswered call had been 4 days before. I was not thinking about that. I was standing in my backyard with my phone taking pictures of my daughter at her birthday party, and the afternoon was warm and the yard was loud and Lily had frosting on her finger and was eating it carefully because she had chosen the piece with the largest flower on it. She did not mention the party at Grant's house. She had not mentioned it in the 3 weeks since. Children are good at setting things down when the adults around them make it possible. We had made it possible. She set it down. I stayed behind the camera for a while just watching. Then I put the phone in my pocket and went over and stood next to Addie, and she handed me a plate, and we stood in our backyard in the afternoon light and watched our children eat cake. Lily blew out every candle. I did not miss a single one.